We would all love to have more opportunities in our life, whether it's manifesting new clients, a career, whether it's new connections or opportunities for growth in our business, our relationships, whatever it is, we all want new opportunities. And have you ever thought to yourself, why do some people get incredible opportunities or don't? Have you ever thought to yourself, why do I feel so great around this person? Or how does this person literally light up a room? A big reason I believe for this phenomenon is actually biophotons. Biophotons are a light that our cells emit. And even though we can't see biophotons with our naked eye, we subconsciously pick up on it. And it can be the reason behind why you feel incredible around one person, or you might feel stressed and like somebody else brings down the room. So these particles, biophotons, have so much incredible research. And today, Aubrey and I are going to dive into how our cells actually emit light, how they impact people around us, how they can allow us to increase our magnetism and attractiveness as we elevate our emotions, and know that there is a science behind this. So next time you're around someone who you're like, wow, I feel really good around this person, I really want to give them an opportunity, know that biophotons might actually have something to do with it. So I'm so excited to be here with you, Aubrey, as we chat about this. So I will pass it over to you where we can dive into the science of biophotons.
Amazing. I get so excited talking about this. Reese, ever since we first met, this is one of the first things on my mind because as a scientist and someone who is really embedded in the research world, I had seen for many years scientists talking about something called ultra weak photon emissions. Eventually, biophotons caught on as like a more popular name, an easier name. And essentially, it just refers, just like you said, Reese, to the light that is emitted from our cells. And at the time when I was first looking into this, I was really into personal development at the same time. I saw so many connections. But at the time, the research was a little tentative, and there were guesses from geneticists and from that world of research that maybe this is how our cells communicate through light, because it's a very effective, very rapid way for cells to transfer information between each other. And it just so happens that over the recent years, there's been a lot of research dedicated not just to now understanding whether or not this is possible. We know that it happens. And in fact, some genetic research is even investing time into understanding how to communicate with ourselves through light. So how we can partake in that process. But there's just so much, like an explosion of research that's coming out of this idea that our cells do emit light. And if you want, after this video, you can even go ahead and check on YouTube. You can find a lot of videos of what biophotons look like. But essentially, they are little bursts of light that are invisible to the naked eye, but in theory, they do sort of radiate off of our bodies for up to about a few millimeters off of our skin. And so there are certain species of animals that can pick up on these things much more readily. And Reese, as you mentioned, humans do pick up subconsciously on the communication that's coming off of these photon emissions. So one of the really cool things that we can take away, I think, from biophotons is the fact, of course, that our cells are communicating. And we know that if there's a part of our cells that's hurting, right, and it doesn't even need to be physical, it could be an emotional, response that we're having, our cells are going to start talking with one another. And you're going to see a lot of activity if you're able to detect it with a machine that will show you biophotons. You'll be able to detect areas where your body is trying to mobilize and heal itself. To me, in and of itself, this is super, super exciting because it shows that there is something that's going on internally where we're involved in this healing process. But the more we research this, we realize that there are certain kind of patterns that you can detect from these biophoton emissions that give you a sense of how probable it will be that you will heal from something, how healthy you are, but also there are ways to partake in this process and actually make the communication stronger and more likely to lead to healing. So, for example, when we see these biophotons emitting off of our bodies using special detection equipment, we can see that people who are very healthy and who are likely to heal physically or emotionally from something that's impacted them, you'll see that the flux of these photons are very ordered. It's very coherent. It's very consistent. when they're feeling a little bit weaker emotionally, or if they're a little bit less healthy, or if they're less likely to heal from something that's impacted them, these photons will emit something maybe a little bit weaker, like less intensity in their light. It might be a little bit more disordered or less consistent. So you'll see little bursts of light. And what we're coming to find is that a lot of the practices that you can find here on this YouTube channel and in the Yes Apply method help in ordering your photon emissions, which I think is incredible. So this is some of the newer research, even since we put this work into the Yes Apply method, newer research that's coming out. We're constantly looking into it. But certain things like meditation practices and even EFT are now shown to really help you enter into the state of full body coherence. And this coherence helps your biophotons have that more ordered structure. So if you are experiencing something and you're healing from something, you're responding to something, you're going to be more likely to bounce back, be more resilient, and have better results if you're investing time into this coherence in your body, which will lead even down to that biophoton level, lead to coherence in how your body's responding to the world. So I find this super, super fascinating. And as I mentioned, there are so many techniques that you can use that we teach in the Yes Apply method, some of which you'll find here on Reese's YouTube channel, that you can use to help you get into that kind of state where you feel very coherent. And this will have a benefit, research shows, all the way down to the DNA level, which is where they think that biophotons originate. So I find it super fascinating.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that is so fascinating. And I have questions and I have input, I have insights, I have thoughts. So you're saying that tools like meditation, EFT, I'm sure some of the other subconscious techniques, they support in getting these incoherent light communication into more an orderly fashion or more coherent communication. Maybe you saw this, maybe we have to dive in deeper into the research, but I'm curious, was there anything that showed what was it that made it more coherent? Was it because the person then had more improved emotions, like they were feeling happier or more love or more excitement or whatever? Or was it just the fact that they're getting out of fight or flight? I'm just curious if
Yeah.
you saw that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the research is early there, so it's definitely something to keep an eye out for, and we certainly will be at Yes Apply. But there are certain concepts that make me feel like will be related. So things like oxidative stress, that's what happens to our cells when we undergo, life's daily stressors. So if we're getting a little amount of sleep, or if we are thinking about something constantly that's holding us back, right? If we're angry all the time, if we're not getting enough nutrients, we know that our cells undergo oxidative stress, and that you can relieve that by balancing your life a little bit more, of course, with those factors that are wearing them down. When we do that, there's less of a load on what our cells have to do, which makes me feel like it will change the way the biophotons need to communicate with one another. But certainly, since we know that there are ways to get into that whole body coherence, EFT is an incredible way to do this. If we know that there are ways that we can cause our body to not be so stressed all the time and not have that impact on our cells, and to be able to just focus on, a singular thought, right? For hold that for a few minutes, that should have a very beneficial effect. And so I suspect that the research will soon show that there are very specific ways that we can help. And I do feel like reaching whole body coherence is going to be a huge part of that. And that means paying attention to what our brain waves are doing, paying attention to what our heart rhythms are doing, our metabolism is doing, right? And getting ourselves in a place where we're synced and our body doesn't need to work so hard to reach that state of balance. That'll certainly help. So
Wow.
I'm very excited to check the research out in the coming year or two. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. So, what tools can we use to measure full body coherence? I know in our master program, we study and teach our students how to use biometrics like the Apple Watch, like the Aura Ring, all these things to track HRV and heart rate and everything like that. But how could we measure full body coherence?
Yeah, so I would say if we wanted to do that, which I think is a great goal, you're going to want to look at least the two places that are coming to mind are looking at our brainwave states. And so there are ways that you can do this, of course, without technology, just trying to focus on getting into meditative states where you feel calm. Or you can introduce technology and look at your actual brainwave patterns and aim to be able to elicit certain activity from your brain when you need to. So sometimes that'll mean getting into a higher ordered or higher frequency state. Sometimes that means getting into a lower frequency state, but being able to do that kind of on demand, more or less, is going to be helpful. So I love the Muse device for that. Like, I'm a huge fan of Muse. We talk about it in the SFI Master Practitioner program. If anyone's watching and wants to get super nerdy about it, you can research Alpha Peak, which is a new measure, like a new biometric measure, at least new to me, that's entering into that world. And so feel free to pursue that, that research. And then you'll also want to look at your heart rhythm. So you mentioned HRV. I think that's one of the most well-documented ways of getting a sense of our coherence between our heart and our brain, which is where a lot of the signals will be coming from in our bodies about repairing itself, because they're very core to our to our autonomic nervous system. And so for that, there are so many tools on the market now: Oura rings, Apple watches, Garmin watches, HeartMath, so many technological ways to get a sense of what your HRV is doing. And some of these companies, for example, HeartMath, they'll even give you something called a coherence score, which is based on this science. So if you really want to get into it, there are so many ways now with very low cost, like sort of daily tech that you might already have to get a sense. And so I think it's definitely something good to aim for. And if we one day are able to have like a wearable that detects our biophotons, I suspect that all of these would be linked together. Good idea for anyone.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You just came up with $1 billion business.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. So I love the HeartMath device, and it does give you that great coherence score. So yeah, I guess that makes sense, because it's tracking your heart rate and your brain waves being coherent. So is that what you think would be closest that we can get right now to measuring full body coherence?
I think that would probably be the closest way that any like typical person could do it. You could always go into a clinic and they can set you up with like a lot of
MRI.
Yeah, totally. And I've been in those situations before on both sides.
Yeah.
You could definitely do that. But I'd say for the typical person who just wants to like make their life better or make their loved ones' lives better, that's a great way to kind of explore it, is get a sense of your coherence score, of your HRV score, and your brainwave activity, if that's accessible to you. These are incredible ways to get in touch with that. And like I said, I'm sure they're very closely linked to biophoton emissions. We just haven't gotten there yet in the research.
Very cool. Well, this was so insightful. And I'll just share a few things that were coming up for me as you were talking about it. I'll link it below if I can find it, but just randomly on my phone, I saw a couple of days ago, there was, I guess, a study or a piece of research that was saying they found a correlation of an increase in hopelessness. Like if somebody had an increase in the feeling of hopelessness, they had an increase in cancer. So I feel like that really relates to what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then also too, Joe Dispenza talks a lot about it. I remember at his retreat, he was talking about they would measure the field of energy around people and found a correlation between the field and the weakness or strength of it. And I believe it was cervical cancer. So if people had this certain pattern in their field, they had cervical cancer. And then there was a small amount of people who they're like, oh, we notice this pattern in their field, but they don't have cervical cancer, but they ended up getting cervical cancer later. Mm-hmm. So what he was teaching us or aiming to share was that when somebody has this certain pattern in their field, it's showing what might occur in terms of their health in the physical in the future. So this could be really interesting to like think about or reflect on if we can see, oh, my biophotons are a little bit out of order, but there's actually exercises I could do like meditation or EFT or other positive mindset tools to help me get my biophotons in order that could help support me in the future. I think that's probably also why we see so many students come through our program just for coaching, and then they end up healing a physical ailment that they weren't even, necessarily focused on, but they increase their energy, they increase their emotions, and then that shifts. So very cool, very interesting.
Very interesting. And I honestly, as you're talking, I feel that close link. Just for anyone listening to, Joe Dispenza participates in a lot of the research that goes into heart math. And so he has a very good contextual understanding that he doesn't always go into. But when he describes these things, they're very real phenomenon that if you research, sometimes you just need to know the term, right? If it's biophoton or ultra-weak photon emissions, or oxidative stress, you can get a sense of how our thoughts really do impact our cellular activity. And that has a huge impact on how we're functioning. And of course, like there are ways to participate in that as we're talking about all these techniques and tools. There are supplements that are available that focus on oxidative stress as well that we can build into our day-to-day. There's antioxidants we can eat, right, in berries. We can get better sleep and all of that. But I think the biggest piece of like the biggest takeaway for anyone watching, I think, is definitely the impact that our thoughts can have in that process, because that's the best first place to start. That's something that you don't need technology for, right? You don't need any of that. And I think even just being here on this channel, you have so many tools available to you to really help with that process of bringing your thoughts to a place that will start benefiting you even on the cellular level.
Right.
So yeah, highly, highly interesting stuff.
Yeah. Are my thoughts making me more peaceful, or are my thoughts sending me into fight or flight? Just that quick shift can make such a big change in our entire day.
It totally does. Think about the work that you're giving yourself, that you're giving your body just by your thoughts alone, right?
Right.
Our environment's already doing that for us. So one thing we can do for ourselves is at least try to serve ourselves with those positive thoughts. Yeah.
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 Wow. Well, being with you right now is such a wonderful environment. So thank you for sharing your time and your insight and bringing all of this research together. It's so interesting to talk about. I know this is going to benefit everyone watching and our entire Yes Supply community, our coaches that are using this in their coaching as well. So if you've watched all of this and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I want to start meditating for myself. I want to start using EFT for all of the different things that I'm going through in my life and reprogram my subconscious mind. I invite you to join our course, Yes, It's Yours, because I break down my 5-step process has helped me create a lot of success in my life, and the subconscious tools that actually help you reprogram your subconscious mind to align to the life that you want. And if you're here and you're watching and you're a coach and you're thinking, I need to start using all of this with my clients, I need to understand the science and the research, then definitely check out the SFI Method Coaching Certification, because we dive deep into how to use all of these tools to support your clients in their growth, in shifting their energy, and reprogramming their subconscious mind too. So it's a very in-depth course. I know you'll absolutely love it. And you'll find all of the links to both of these courses below. And you get to hang out with Aubrey and I in our coaching calls inside as well. So thanks so much for being here with me today. It was so lovely. Any last thoughts before we hop off?
No, just that. Thank you to you, Reese, because I literally, Yes, It's Yours. I'm in Yes, It's Yours. I do the coursework. It's really changed my life. So I highly recommend it. And yeah, I'm so grateful to you.
Yes, I'm grateful to you too. And I think Yes, It's Yours has changed my life too. So that's awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And I'll see you